doesn't even glance my way. Whether I'm thrilled by my growth or consumed by bitter regret, I never enter his field of vision.
You always worry about the distance between you and him.
Huh?
You brought him up last time, too.
Isn't it natural if I'm gonna beat Shuji?
I get how you really want to be him.
No, you don't. You're always the one being pursued. You could never know how it feels. You've never been compared to someone better than you or agonized over why you're even doing any of this, or about your potential, or your commitment to badminton. I'm wasting my time thinking about this. While I'm thinking about Shuji, Shuji's thinking about badminton. That said, I don't have Taike-senpai's single-minded dedication either. I can't be motivated by pure things, like my love for badminton or some other lofty goal. I have no choice but to be fueled by bitterness and hate.
That must hurt. Sorry, but it's fine to live like that, right? The reason you can be angry is because you're still in the thick of it. People don't have intense feelings about what's already over and done with. Even if it's painful, that can be its own kind of happiness.
One Piece, Naruto, Bleach. These are three of the biggest manga series of all time, and they were all published at the same time by the same magazine, Weekly Shonen Jump, which has also published a few little-known titles like Dragon Ball, Slam Dunk, Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia, Chainsaw Man, and so many more that it would take me the whole video just to name all of the important series published by Weekly Shonen Jump. But what is it like actually reading Weekly Shonen Jump weekly? I have set out to just do that as the last video in Magazine May, where I read the entirety, as much as I could find, of the translated, simul-published manga from Weekly Shonen Jump, all of the stuff that debuted on March 15th of 2026. Hi, my name is Steven, but you might better know me by my superhero alter ego, Spike Stonehand. And welcome to my channel, Divining Comics, where I explore the magic hidden between the panels of your favorite comics.
Boys and girls, your attention, please. Presenting a new exciting radio program featuring the thrilling adventures of an amazing and incredible personality.
To my longtime fans, I am sorry for the lateness of this video. I know it's a couple days late, but I have a good excuse. Last week, instead of filming the video, I was at the rodeo. So I'm going to do the rest of the video like this. Why not? To those of you who may be joining me for the first time, I would like to welcome you to my channel. This is part of an ongoing project called the Divining Comics Challenge, where I have selected 52 categories of comics from across the globe and from across history in order to expand my knowledge of the breadth and depth of comics as an art form. And I would like for you to join me in this journey. The best ways you can do that are, one, liking this video and subscribing to the channel. That both boosts this video in the algorithm so that more people can learn about the Divining Comics Challenge, and also make sure you never miss an update. If you join me, you can find the full description of all 52 categories in the description of this video. You can comment below with what your thoughts are on some of the comics you've been reading. Please do, I'd love to hear more. Or if you have thoughts specifically on Weekly Shonen Jump, please do comment below. You can also follow my blog at spikestonehand.com. There I have weekly new comics reviews and bi-weekly roundups of all the comics news industry items that I thought were interesting, and I share links to other YouTubes and podcasts that I personally am a fan of and think are worth your time to watch or listen to. All that aside, let's get into Weekly Shonen Jump. Like I said, I read everything that I could find on the Shonen Jump app from March 15th of this year. There was one original shot story that wasn't available in the Shonen Jump app for whatever reason. But Shonen Jump app, a great deal if you are interested in reading this. It's like $3 for the huge backlog, and I think there's like a limit of 100 chapters a day or something absurd like that. Like you'd have to really be spending all day reading a particular manga to hit that chapter limit. And for free, you get the past 3 weeks of Shonen Jump chapters, all translated and published simultaneously the same day in America, at least in the United States, as in Japan. So that's a pretty great deal. Like I said, this is going to be 19 chapters were covered in this week's edition. That would be a really long video for me to go in depth on all 19 chapters. I only read 18 because one of them wasn't available, like I said. So instead of doing that, I'm going to just talk a little bit more in depth about my 3 favorite chapters from the 3 favorite series that I read this week, and then I'll do a lightning round covering the rest of them, and then finally I will rank all of them, right? If you don't know, one of the big things about Shonen Jump is that they're very harsh about what series they cut. They have very strict regulations on how popular a series has to be in order to be published in the premier magazine of Japanese shonen manga, right? How do they figure out how people feel about these series? It's not like you can do in American comics where you look at issue sales and say, oh, Batman sold this many versus, Spider-Man sold this many, and compare and contrast that way. No, so they actually have, everybody can turn in their rankings. There used to be a physical card. There might still be in Japan, but in the past, now it's you can do it digitally, and I'm sure they also do look at the digital sales, which are a lot easier trackable. Look at reading individual chapters on the Shonen Jump app. But you would send in your top 3 series, and then those would be the ones that are, they would gather all the ratings. I think it was about an 8-week delay. And the table of contents in every issue of Shonen Jump, again, given that 8-week delay, would be the official rankings, like 1 through 20, of this is how popular the series is according to people's, 1, 2, 3 spots. There's some exception to this, like the special color pages might be given to a series that hits a milestone chapter number, like, chapter 100 or chapter 150. But generally speaking, the table of contents is the rankings for how popular a given manga is in Shonen Jump. So stuff at the very end tends to be a little less liked than stuff at the very beginning. So in that spirit, at the end, I'm going to give my full rankings of all of these. But let's talk about my 3 favorite series. All right, so just going in the order that they're published in the magazine, my favorite chapter that I read this week was the most recent chapter at the time of publishing of Sakamoto Days. This obviously is the most popular manga in Shonen Jump. It's the first one that they have in their table of contents, and I have honestly no idea what this is about. Let me say that true for all of the series. I have no idea what any of these are about because I am not a weekly Shonen Jump reader, at least weekly. I know some of the bigger series, like I've read Chainsaw Man, I've read a little bit of One Piece, read a little bit of, Spy X Family, things like that, but those weren't in this edition of Shonen Jump. They're all either on break or they just took a week off. I don't know how the specifics of that publishing works, so I had no idea about any of these series going in. I didn't know anything about any of them, so it's all just fresh reactions to jumping into the middle of a story, and obviously that's not the ideal way to read a series all the time. That being said, jumping into the middle of this Sakamoto Days was incredible. I was so amazed at how well every little beat of this story worked. I don't know who these characters are, who their relationships are, but I know exactly what I need to do to enjoy this 22 pages of nonstop action, and it was really cool. It tells the story in this one chapter of there's some sort of hitman who's trying to take out who I assume is more of a protagonist character, and they're fighting back and forth nonstop. It feels like the hitman has the upper hand the whole time. He in fact poisons the water with some sort of neurotoxin that'll paralyze our protagonist, and not only does he get her with that, he starts to try and drown her in the paralytic toxin water. And you're like, okay, how is she possibly going to get out of this? And like a classic hero story. She finds some inner well of strength and uses the numbness from the neurotoxin to withstand her injuries from being stabbed and whatnot, and is able to then turn around and defeat this hitman pretty decisively. I think she rips out his throat. So it's gnarly art, really fun, engaging chapter. Like I said, I don't know the motives of these characters, but I don't need to. I know exactly what matters for this story. You even get little reference to apparently why the hitman wants to take out this character is because she said his baby was kind of freaky, and that upset him so much that he decided to dedicate his life to destroying her. And that was enough. You get a little bit about this character that is defending her life. She is remembering her mentor. Maybe he's the protagonist. I'm not really sure. And that's what gives her that inner well of strength to overcome and to fight back what seemed like insurmountable odds. But I loved this. This was great. This actually really made me want to keep reading this series. I mean, to start reading, really, to figure out what's going on with these characters. This is just a great, action-filled, very motivated chapter of the series, and the art was absolutely stunning. Of course, the fight choreography was great. I can't recommend Sakamoto Days this enough, even in the context of this one chapter. The second series that I really liked, again going from the table of contents, front to back, was Blue Box, and this is a sports manga about badminton players, and maybe there's also a basketball player as well. Kind of got a romance, I think, going on. I'm not sure if this issue actually focused on any of the main protagonists. It felt like it was actually focusing on maybe one of the antagonists of the series. He at least came off kind of petulant and angry, like he has to give all of his all because the what I presume is the main character has everything handed to him so easily. If this is the main character, then I think it's actually doing a really good job of giving a lot of nuance to his motivations, to why he wants to be the best, and challenging him. It's a much more complicated protagonist than I think you would usually find in these shonen narratives. It felt like maybe more like to use the Naruto example, like this was the Sasuke of the story, but he is having a conversation with this, I think the female lead of the series, who is like a basketball star, and just kind of they're talking about their motivations, about why they do what they do, and there wasn't really any badminton played at all, other than outside of the first couple pages that kind of just had a few back and forth shots. It wasn't the middle of a game. It wasn't the climax of an arc, but nevertheless, the conversations were just so good, so well written, from interesting character perspectives, that I really love this. This was another one that I am very tempted to just start from the beginning and catch up on. Similarly, I'd be very excited to see a more action-heavy chapter where they are playing badminton, because even in just what would be a simple back and forth conversation scene, the art is very well done, very well shaded. I was a big fan of this series, and would be excited to see what the mangaka could do in a intense moment of climax, and like a 10 chapter final badminton game for some trophy, right? I think that could be a really interesting arc, and I would love to keep reading. The third series that I really loved was Underdoctor. This is in the tradition, I think, of I know there's a lot of manga about doctors and surgeries. You have from Osamu Tezuka had Blackjack, and then his student, his devotee Naoki Urasawa did Monster. This is maybe a little less dark than either of those series, but it was very interesting. This kind of legendary doctor who had we find out through flashback, a number of years ago, had a very complicated and difficult surgery that he was unable to save the life of the patient, but now he's getting a chance to do that same surgery again and redeem himself. It felt very soap opera. It felt very, ER, but in the best possible way. We get kind of, this legendary doctor who's, he's got a relive his darkest moment of his life and overcome it. I will say that there was some weird tonal stuff in this. He's got kind of an adopted child that he a ward, like his Robin type figure that he takes care of, and that ward was the comic relief in a way that I felt jarred a bit with the tone of the rest of the comic. It would maybe make more sense if this was his ward was also trying to become a surgeon, but that didn't seem at all to be in the cards, at least in the chapter that I read. So that part didn't work for me as well, but I overall really liked this kind of medical drama narrative. I think that there's a reason why shows like The Pit, ER have The Good Doctor, I don't know, House, or were really popular shows. It's just a good format for episodic storytelling that has very high stakes and very relatable, understandable circumstances, and you get to watch somebody being really good at their job, which is another thing that people just always love doing. So yeah, this was a really interesting series as well. Would be interested from somebody who maybe knows more about it to give me a little bit more backstory, and then I can determine if I would like to read that or not. All right, lightning round time. Someone Hurts. This one did not work for me really. This was kind of a could tell it's like a rom-com between two people that want to be radio comedians and tell jokes on it, and it's kind of their awkward not date to date going to a state fair. I think something might have been lost in translation. I know comedy and romance are both really hard to do in translation, but yeah, this one did not work for me in the slightest. Ichi the Witch, I was very confused by this one. I don't think that's necessarily the manga's fault. It is jumping into the middle of something that's 100 chapters in, but as Sakamoto Days shows, you can do that and have it still be a story that people can understand and know what's happening. There was some sort of octopus demon that I guess if you kill the demons 100 times, you get their power or something like that. And the octopus demon was kind of didn't want to die, but they were killing it anyway. It felt very emotional, actually, that moment of the octopus begging for its life. But I don't know, I didn't really understand what was going on or the relationships between any of the characters. That wasn't clear through this one chapter. So again, not dissing the series, not knocking it, but this one chapter was not impressive to me. Next is Shinobi Undercover. This whole chapter has kind of a big fight sequence between the villainous son of the dojo master that's training all of these shinobi, these ninjas. And he was spurned by his father, and I think because of his violent nature, and so now he's out for revenge. This was good, but not great, I would say. A lot of the fight scenes, it felt like it was at a 10 the whole time. And you need to kind of build, rise and fall, right? If you really want to engage somebody in good action storytelling. If every page is a giant explosion, the explosions stop having meaning. You need some of those more quiet moments. You need the push and pull of, oh, this person's winning, oh, this person's winning, that you didn't get in this fight sequence. But it was well drawn. It was interesting enough. And I did like kind of the flashbacks to the villain's backstory that were interspersed throughout to kind of help build the tension a little bit. Next up was Nue's Exorcist. I thought this was interesting enough. It felt like a very climactic chapter. It has a lot of what seemed to be backstory reveals, which are interesting for a manga that's 130 something chapters in, that you're just now getting some of these reveals as to the nature of things, of what's going on. It was interesting enough. It actually, for better and for worse, I think, felt kind of video game-esque. So if that's your thing, you could check this series out. I don't know if that's for me, but it wasn't bad by any means. Next was Kagurabachi. This is a pretty popular series. This individual chapter had these blacksmiths. I think they were talking to the mob about how to imbue a sword with spirit energy. And, this kind of sci-fi fantasy nonsense is usually 100% up my alley. And I love that kind of, you get the master swordsman who has dedicated his whole life to this craft, and he's talking about his cutting edge research that he's done into spirit energy, and then you get, I think, the protagonist come in and he just kind of intuits it all through his superior ability. That's kind of a fun story beat to have, but yeah, there just wasn't a whole lot in this chapter that really engaged me on a story level. I don't really feel a need to know more, the points, the drawings felt a little cheesy, cartoony for the tone, but again, that could just be this one chapter. I know this is a popular series, so if you love this series, tell me why I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments. Then we have Kanato's Magic. That's a newer series. I think it was only on chapter 7 that I read, and it seems like a fun enough premise. Kanato is a new magician in this adventurers guild, but in this chapter they encounter the big dog, kind of mean villain adventure guild that one-ups them and shows them how incompetent they are. You get a fun character in the villain school who's clearly going to be the analog character to Kanato, that he's the similarly young prodigy magician, and it'll be the kind of friendly rival thing. It's a fun enough premise. I could see this going somewhere, and being a series worth following, especially if it stays popular enough to get a long run going. Then we have Akane Banashi. I don't, again, no idea what the backstory of this is. This was I didn't really get kind of what was going on, but the art itself was stunning. It was spectacular. It was an extended sequence of these two characters dancing in a way that was very kinetic, similar to a great action sequence. I know in movies people say that a lot, that there's a tight relationship between choreographed dance and choreographed fighting in film, and I think you can really see that on display in this comic. The relationship between choreographed dance and choreographed comic fighting. It was absolutely beautiful art, and you kind of get the little moments where the two dancers are in competition, even though they're also trying to coordinate with one another on this intuitive level. I just thought this was really well done. I'm curious to know exactly what the premise is, what the story is about, but this one chapter was pretty good looking, and it was good looking enough that someone told me that the mangaka had a new series that I should check out, with volume 1. I would definitely be curious. Next up we have Me and Roboko. This was a silly little series, chapter at least. I don't know if it's always this kind of comic tone, but it has this robot that wants to be as popular as some of the bigger manga series, who they get the mangaka behind them to write blurbs for other mangas, right? It's like how you ask whoever the most important people in a field to say, hey, I like this new thing, and then it'll maybe get people to check out the new thing. And so Roboko wants to get to that level, and she's like, I gotta practice. And so she writes blurbs for all of the other series in this issue of Shonen Jump, at least a large number of them, and they're kind of funny. She's bad at writing them. It does get very one note. It's the same gag over and over and over, kind of even very similar layouts over and over and over. So this was kind of fun, a little silly, but it was there's not much depth here, and I think that you could have told this story with at least mixing up the gags a little bit, escalating it, doing different formats. It was very one note in that sense, and it wasn't a bad note. I just wanted a little something different by the end. Alien Headbutt was the next one. It's another new series, only on chapter 6. It's got kind of a wrestler fighting these aliens that have taken over. It does the thing that personally bothers me a lot, where they really hyper-localize the dialogue, giving the wrestler like a very distinct American accent in a way that doesn't make sense with the plot of the story. That's just a personal pet peeve of mine. I always hate it when they do that. There was some cool moments, like there's they do like a slingshot maneuver in order to overcome the alien robots, security perimeter. And like, if we stand just this far away, they won't be triggered to attack us, so we can take some of them down, or at least distract them so that somebody can go in and do insertion operation. This was fine, a little forgettable. Next up, Hema 10. This was the two maids that are competing with a third maid for the affection of some boy that they like. If this is your thing, if you like the kind of women-led romantic comedy drama, soap opera storyline, this could be for you. It didn't really seem like it was for me. It's not my favorite genre in general, and there wasn't anything that really drew me in or stunned me in that sense. Though the week-to-week soap opera seems much more interesting than reading this in like a long chunk. I could feel like the story beats would very quickly get kind of tiresome, and the moment-to-moment who's on top, who does the main character, who does the boy like of the main female leads. Week to week, that could be fun. In a long chunk, I would be very tired of it. All right, we're in the last 5 now. This lightning round has gone on forever. We had Witch Watch. This had some cool action. These 2 warlocks were dueling it out for the future of the planet. And it had some really cool little diagrams. I'm a sucker for a good diagram where it would explain kind of what was going on in like a more simple chibi style. But this wasn't beyond those cool elements. There was just too much backstory would have needed to really enjoy this chapter. Again, not a knock on the series, but I gotta rate it like I read it, and it was just fine in that sense. But there were some cool action, like I said, and I did like the artistic choices. Then you have Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi. I guess that has these kind of paladins that are fighting demons. They at least one of them had a very over-the-top characterization that made his deal seem kind of apparent, which was nice and appreciated in this mode of reading. But the action was very kinetic and not always in a good way. It was kind of confusing. I didn't really know what was going on or what the overall premise was, what people's goals were, other than just to fight the guy that was right in front of them. This wasn't my favorite, but I could see this being, if this was if I had read this when I was 12, I could see this being a favorite. Last 3, Hero Girl and Demon Lord Call It Quits. This was a flashback issue where I guess we find an earlier incarnation of the Hero Girl and Demon Lord, except it was a hero guy at that point, the prior hero is explaining his failures with his son and with the demon, that he didn't protect them properly, and so that motivates the hero girl to really make sure to protect her demon lord. There's not much to say here. If this is your thing, you might like it. It's not my thing, and I don't, that feels like a very romanticy style of these 2 characters, a hero girl and a demon lord. That's just not anything that I'm really interested in. And this didn't do anything to impress me in this one chapter. Again, I wasn't reading anything with the main characters that much. They didn't really do much. It was a very passive chapter in that sense, so maybe a better one would have been more convincing to me, but not for me. Penultimate chapter was The Mage Next Door. Honestly, I have very little recollection of this chapter at all. My notes say that I kind of liked some of the cross-hatching in the art, and I also said that some of the story beats all felt very tropey. That's it. So it was just in my eyes and then out my brain. I did not retain a single element of this. I am sorry. I'll do better next time. Finally, Gonron Egg. I can see why this is the lowest ranked in Shonen Jump. It's got some weird art. It's got a weird tone. This chapter seemed to be about a magical egg returning from the afterlife. It was a little weird. I have no idea how to make heads or tails of this. If you're a big fan of deviant art, maybe this is your thing. Go with God. Godspeed. Now that we've wrapped up, I'm going to read from last to first my rankings, so apologies for reading this off of my iPad where I have them written down. But we have, in last place, Someone Hurts, then Gonron Egg, Hima 10, Kagurabachi, Ichi the Witch, Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi, Hero Girl and Demon Lord Call It Quits, The Mage Next Door, Witch Watch, Alien Headbutt, Me and Roboko, Shinobi Undercover, Nue's Exorcist, Akane Banashi, Kanato's Magic, and then in third place, bronze medal, Underdoctor, second place, silver medal, Blue Box, and my favorite chapter that I read this week, Sakamoto Days. So, who would I recommend this for? Look, if you love shonen manga, this is the premier shonen manga. It's probably got something that you would like. Now, do I recommend reading this week to week? If you have a favorite manga, sure, keep up with your chapters every week that week. Otherwise, I think it's probably better to maybe read the first volume of any of these series, and if they strike your fancy, then continue reading in that volume-to-volume way. Right? Manga comes out at such a quick pace anyways that it's not like American comics where you're waiting a year or more for the next volume of your favorite series. You'll be waiting a few months, and that's a much more tolerable way to. Manga tankobon are pretty cheap. I think that's probably the best way to read it. So would I continue reading in this week-to-week format? No, this is honestly so much reading. I was overwhelmed. That's why the video is so late, partially is because there were just so many chapters to read. And I don't know about you, but I feel like if I can lock in and read one series, I can read 400 pages that way. But reading 400 pages of 20 different series, that's another beast entirely. And that's really mentally hard for me at least to change tracks so much. And so it took me a long time to read all of this, and that's why the video's late. I don't think I could do this week to week, reading every single chapter in Weekly Shonen Jump. I could maybe keep up with like one or two series if I really loved them. That being said, would I keep reading some of these series? Absolutely. Like I said, those top three, Sakamoto Days, Blue Lock, and Under Doctor, I would definitely be interested in going back and reading them from the beginning, catching up, because those all three had a lot of moments that really sold me. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a video. Comment below with what I got wrong, what series that I have rated too low, what series I rated too high. Let me know if you agree with me. Hey, that happens every now and then too. Until then, I'll see you next time, and never let the magic of comics die.
Old Enoch, he lived to be 365 when the Lord came and took him back to heaven alive. I saw the light from heaven shining all around. I saw the light come shining, I saw that light come down.